Liz, yeah, you'll stay muted and you'll be off camera unless Ben or I turn on your camera or your microphone. So you don't have to worry about it for tonight. Yes, okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the virtual tour of Bucked. Thanks for coming to our virtual webinar. My name is Catherine. I'm an AmeriCorps member with the Vermont Land Trust. I do education and outreach service, and I've also been helping with the events team. So that's been really fun. We are here tonight to learn more about Bucked, and I will let Ben and his special guest tell you about most of it, but I'll just introduce who Ben is and kind of what his work at Bucked entails, if you don't already know. So Ben Waterman here, he recently started working with the Land Trust. I believe it's been almost a full year. And he was a soil scientist and lands educator for UVM Extension previously. He has also worked extensively in construction trades, so he knows lots of things about how water pipes work and things like that. His job with VLT is lands director, and he manages VLT's owned properties. One of those is Brewster Uplands, which is what we're here to learn about tonight. And so VLT owns 4 properties across the state. I actually get to serve at one of them, which is Bluffside Farm. And these are places where the community can kind of engage with the land and do different things. And Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust is one of those as well. And so tonight we're going to highlight the different ways that the community uses Brewster Uplands, or Bucked as it's called for short. And yeah, we'll talk about the different land-based activities that go on there. So that's what we're here to do. I'll hand it over to you now, Ben. Oh, actually, a few things before we get started about logistics. If you want to ask a question, we will be getting to questions periodically throughout the webinar and also at the end. So if you have a question, find the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. It has 2 little chat bubbles. You can also type in the chat box and we'll get to those. And then we will be doing some polls throughout, so be on the lookout for those. They're pretty straightforward. And we're trying out some new features tonight, so we're excited about them, but be patient with us if we need a little patience. But I think we've got it, so we're excited. And I'm going to hand it off to Ben now.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you to all of you who are here. It's great to have you on the tour. The Brewster Uplands property is such a special place. It's such a dynamic place. It's really a great place to be touring, whether it be virtually or in person. So I'm really grateful for all of you who are participating, and grateful to those of you who might catch the recording of this webinar. It's going to be an exciting tour. So I'll just start with introducing the property. The Brewster Uplands property, the main property at least, is about a 600-acre property. The main features are its recreation trails, and then there are 2 working farms, which we'll learn all about in a couple minutes. So there's the West Farm that's over on your right side of your screen towards West Farm Road, and the Rob Toy Farm, which we'll learn about from Sam Rowley, who's been gracious enough to join us from the Green Mountain Technical Career Center, our program that's happening there. The other main feature of the property is obviously the Brewster River. So it's just a spectacular river that parallels the property and kind of meanders throughout it. So many people visit the property just to access the Brewster River. Before I move on, I just want to give a shout out to the Bryan family. So the entire Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust was donated by the Bryan family, and the development rights were donated as well by the Bryan family. So the properties are conserved. And so a lot of what or mostly all of what we'll be viewing tonight and hearing about would not really be possible without the hard work and the generosity of the Bryan family. And they've done a ton of work over the years to sort of build up the trail system, maintain the property. So it's really an honor to be working with them and kind of honoring their legacy as we move forward. So just to put things into context a little, or zooming out a bit, the there are 4 properties that are part of the Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust property. So we'll be talking about the one on the left-hand side of your screen, the big one on the top left, which is actually properly oriented. So this is actually the same property there. This is just not really properly oriented, but this is the proper north-south orientation of the property. We'll be talking about. There are a couple of other smaller parcels to the south, and then another 600 plus acre property that's higher up in elevation. That's the bucked forest you're looking at there. But we'll be focusing mainly on what we call the primary property. So the first stop is going to be the trails. The second stop, we'll visit the West Farm and talk through some of the nonprofit farming activities that are happening there. And then we're going to visit the Rob Toy Farm, which Sam will tell us all about. So just wanted to pause here for a minute on the tour before we really launch and start. Just take in the beauty and the sounds. Hopefully you guys can hear that nice, peaceful flowing water. All right, shall we embark?
Yeah, sorry I lost my connection there. I had to reboot my internet.
That's okay, Laird. We're gonna get to you in a sec, Laird. So you're still good.
Okay, thanks.
So we're on the kind of the first stop along the trails here. This is one of the main points of trail access, and this is a covered bridge that crosses the Brewster River. And so this would be at the bottom of your map. You see that P symbol there. This is one of the main parking areas and access points to the trails at Brewster Uplands. There has been a lot of traffic lately, especially since COVID. There's just probably more traffic than the locals have ever seen, which is a good thing. It does present some management challenges, but for the most part, people are really coming to Brewster and enjoying the trails. And in this case, they're enjoying the river access. So cars are lined up along the road on one side of the covered bridge there, and then the other side is the photo up on the left, which is actually a town park on the other side of the bridge. So plenty of parking areas, plenty of ways to access the trails from that area. This is a shot of another one of the main trails access points. So I'll go back again to the first map. So this would be at the center of the map here, at the TH icon, right at the intersection of Rob Toy, West Farm, and Canyon Roads. So this is another main trailhead, main access point. It's kind of more centrally located, and you can access most of the trails from here, although you might have to hike out a little bit. The trails at Brewster Upland are nice and open. They're nice and flat. They're spacious. They make great places to walk, socially distanced for COVID reasons. They're really well maintained, but they're not really strenuous. So if you're looking for like a really strenuous kind of ankle breaking place to hike, this would not be the place for you, but it is a place where you can really find peace and kind of just to have the same pace as you walk along these wide open trails. One of the things that's really important to the Vermont Land Trust and our partners is maintaining trail access. And so this is a bridge that recently really needed to be replaced. This is at the main Alden Bryan trailhead. And we started a little campaign. So some of you who might be watching might have contributed to the Let's Build a Bridge campaign. And so if you're watching and you contributed, we're entirely grateful to you. And this is really, I think there's like 13 or at least 13 people who contributed resources towards the replacement of this bridge so we could maintain trail access for the longer term. This is a shot of just some folks who probably, they kind of hit their milestone at the time when we were replacing the bridge. So they wanted to get up on the bridge and take a shot, but I actually think they were perfectly happy down in the riverbed of the tributary there. You're right behind them, you're seeing the Brewster River. So this would be like a before shot of the bridge replacement. And this is kind of during construction. We had a multi-generational contractor outfit. That's Trent Pepin down in the left. He's the younger generation. Dan, his father, is not pictured there, but then Dan's father-in-law, Richard, is pictured at the far left there. So we built the trail that, like, the goal was to build a trail that would last for many generations to come. And here's a final shot of the trail bridge at the main trailhead there across from the covered bridge. Some nice new signs that Laird McDowell recently posted. This is something that we're working on slowly but surely, kind of updating the signage on the trail, so it's easy for folks to know where they are and kind of make the trails more accessible and family friendly. Laird will talk in a minute about that. Again, the Brewster River is kind of one of the main features. It's accessible. It's kind of striking in every season. The trail does meet some fields, so it's not all darkened in the woods. It does come out. It doesn't traverse any of the farm fields, but it does open out to the striking views of Mount Mansfield. It's just really a special place to walk around. And real quick, before I transition, or before we pass the mic to Laird and hear about the Cambridge Trails Committee, we do accommodate and support hunting access at the property. Although there's so many uses with recreation and all the farming activities that we do have a permission only protocol to make sure kind of everyone's on board with what's happening. And but we encourage anyone who's interested in hunting the property to get in touch with us. So to make sure you guys are awake, I'll pass the mic back to Catherine real quick. We'll do a quick little poll just to make sure you guys are still awake.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna launch the poll now. And we wanna know, what do you think is on the other side of this sign? So cast your vote, and then we will see what the answer is. We'll give, I don't know, 10 to 15 seconds. Cast your vote.
Catherine, let me know if I need to end the poll, or if that's something you want to do.
I will end it. And if anyone else wants to vote, one more second. All right. And can you all see the results? Ben, can you see the results?
Yeah, it's on my screen. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you guys are really smart. 55% of the majority got the right answer, that we are entering private property. Probably not fair that Laird, you walk these trails daily, but if you participated, but unfortunately there's no ice cream in the vicinity. Sorry about that.
All right, so yeah, there's the results for you guys. Cool. We'll put that away now. Thanks for participating.
So, oh, I lost my my toggling capability here. Let me just reinitiate that. So lastly, before I hand the baton over to Laird, is just want to make the quick point that the Brewster Uplands property is for the most part accessible to the public. We encourage public access, but we just want to make sure to respect the privacy and the rights of our neighboring landowners. So there are various points along the property border where trails intersect, and sometimes landowners might be fine with traversing those trails during certain times of year, but we want to just maintain the relationships that we have with our neighbors and respect their privacy when that's due. So with that, I'd like to introduce Laird McDowell, who's the trail of the Cambridge Trails Committee, and make the point that the trails at Brewster Uplands are really part of a much broader, extensive trail network that the Trails Committee has been working really hard over many years to maintain and improve. So Laird, this is Laird McDowell here, and Laird, hopefully you can chime in.
Okay. Just a little background on the trail. It is a hiking trail that was established in 2000, so it's 20 years old, and it runs adjacent to the Brewster River, starting at the Canyon Road Covered Bridge, and continues up to Edwards Road. There's a disconnect on Edwards Road, but it does continue up for another mile, and it comes on Smuggler's Notch property, and the upper trail ends at the upper Edwards Road. And this parallels, like I said, the Brewster River and Route 108 south. We've been working mostly on the upper section, we'll call the Edwards Road section. It's about a mile. The lower section is about 4 miles. So the total hiking trail is 5 miles. And the past 2 years, my committee, which is an all-volunteer Cambridge Trails Committee, we report to the Cambridge Select Board, and we have a budget for doing trail work. It's not just the Brewster River Trail, it's also the Cambridge portion of the Mobile Valley Rail Trail and the Cambridge Greenway Path. So we maintain those trails all within the town of Cambridge. So this the photo on the left is a bridge we built last summer. Crosses a ravine that kind of opened up in the last few years. Was impassable. It's about 6 feet deep, and we were there yesterday with a crew of people looking at some mitigation work. We're going to put in some check dams to keep that ravine not as open. On the right is a bridge we built this summer, crossing a very severe landslide. It's below what's called the Knee Deep Farm. The bridge is 100 feet long. It consists of 6 sections. Some of the sections, the longest one's 19 feet. Most of them are 12. We used a couple of aluminum ladders, some heavy duty ladders for support structure, and a lot of pressure treated wood. But all the deck boards you see there on both bridges were donated used pressure treated wood. Where I put a request on a Front Porch Forum in Cambridge asking for donations. And it's a really good time to do that because with COVID, people are doing home improvement projects, in particular replacing their decks. And it costs money to dispose of pressure treated wood. You can't burn it. So we basically just flip the boards over, and there's a good side to them. And we also add chicken wire to the bridges to make it more stable. Go to the next slide.
You got your videos loaded up, Laird,
Okay.
if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. And, so the one on the left there is some bridges we just completed just a couple weeks ago. It's another difficult section of the trail, the 5 bridge trail. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Want me to roll that one first?
What's that?
Which one would you like to roll first?
The one on the left.
Okay, here we go.
The Bryan Brewster River Trail. This is the upper part, just below Bootlegger's Pond. Zeke and I finished putting on the wire fencing, prevent slippage. This is Bridge 1. I added in this flat stone here this morning on a wet section. Didn't really need a bridge, but plenty of stone from the river. Bridge 2. See, it kind of drops off here. This is full of water in the spring. Don't think this is a dry riverbed at all. And we have Bridge 3. Four. And of course 5. And I'm heading downstream. And as I mentioned before, we brought those bridges in from back of Bootlegger's Pond, slid them down this hill. Actually worked fairly well once we got the first one down. That was Peter and Tom LaChance and I.
Laird, I'll go ahead and roll the second one. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100-foot long bridge over a landslide below Knee Deep Farm. A little bit shorter video here. So the bridge consists of 6 different sections, as long as 19 feet to 12. And we did install a railing as well as chicken wire, keep it from being slippery. When wet or there's a frost, we used a couple aluminum ladders as support, donated by John Dunn of the Cambridge Community Center. All the deck boards were donated pressure treated wood used that we just flipped over. All the substructure is new pressure treated, along with the railing handles here. And this takes care of crossing this very steep landslide. And then we got the river down below. Good shot of it here. So this solved a very bad section of the Brewster River Trail for hikers and for bikers for that matter. I am heading downstream. We installed these steps and back on the regular trail.
Thanks for taking that footage and sharing that, Laird. Those are great.
So this is a map of a mountain bike trail system that's located just off of Edwards Road, or actually Cliff Reynolds Road. This was built a few years ago by members of the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club, and I'm a member of that club as well. And I help maintain these trails. It's a series of loops, mostly intermediate single track trails. Probably takes 20 minutes to ride the whole trail system. But it's called the Midlands Trails. And the Brewster River Trail, the hiking trail, and I call it a hiking trail because there's some geological features that make it impossible to ride the whole thing. Very steep climbs, and we're trying to figure out how to make it more bike friendly, but we got some obstacles to deal with, including the river. But the Brewster River Mountain Bike Club has been around quite a long time. And I was surprised when I joined. You know, you think it might be 20, 30 guys in Jeffersonville. There's 400 members of this club from all over northern Vermont. So it's when you have a work day, you can get 30, 40 people to show up to do trail work. So it's kind of neat. But you can get to these trails from the Brewster River Trail by way of West Farm Road, which is shown in the upper part of the map there. So you can go up the Brewster River Trail from the Canyon Bridge and then cut over on a carriage trail to West Farm Road, which is a dirt road, and then take Cliff Reynolds, and then you can get to the trail system. So it is, you can connect to it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you, Laird, and you've been really active and put in tremendous effort on all the trails in the area there, and it's you can really see the fruits of your labor. I encourage anyone that's listening to really get out there. It's just it's such a great place to hike and walk around. And thanks again, Laird.
Just one thing before I forget about is, you know, you showed the private property. So about the middle of the lower trail, at about the 2 mile mark, the trail crosses private property. It's owned by a local sugar maker by the name of Doug Edwards. He bought the property 2 years ago from another local that did not want any trail across their property. So it was a bad situation where we had a break in the trail right in the middle. So we met with Doug, a member of my committee, and I 2 years ago, and got permission from him to reestablish that hiking trail. He did want it closed starting September 1st for hunting. So we do close the trail. It's about 1,000 feet of trail, maybe 2/10 of a mile, that crosses his property right along the river, and then rejoins the land trust property. So we ask permission every year to cross his property, and we're hoping maybe we can get a permanent easement in the future. It's gone pretty well so far. So just want to mention that.
Thanks again, Laird.
You're welcome.
So Catherine, do you want to facilitate Q&A, or is that?
Yeah. If anyone has a question about what we've talked about so far, you can put it in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, or if you prefer the chat box, that's great too. So go for it. All right. Let's see. Gail asks, are there other similar projects like this that VLT is supporting or working to create? And I actually have an answer that I know of, but I don't want to steal your thunder, Ben.
Please, Catherine. Yeah, by all means.
Okay, thanks. It's part of my AmeriCorps service, so I'm excited about it. But the Bluffside Farm property here in where I am in Newport, we have just started construction on a rec path. So not quite hiking trails. There are informal trails right now, but that will be done in the future at some point. I'm not exactly sure when, but that's exciting. And that's again in Newport. So that's something similar in a different part of the state. I don't know if Ben, you know of any other things in the works that you want to highlight?
Sure. Another Vermont Land Trust owned property that's similar to Brewster and similar to the Bluffside Farm that Catherine just mentioned is the King Farm in Woodstock. And that's open to the public, and there's an extensive trail network there, and just a beautiful place to walk and hike around. So there's the Pine Island Farm in Colchester is another land trust community-based farm. There aren't hiking trails or walking trails there, but there are public tours from time to time, so you can get out and about on the farm there. And then the land trust has various other access opportunities. So the land trust's main kind of bread and butter role over the years has been to conserve properties. Not necessarily own them, but conserve them. And so we have a rec map that's online now. So I'd encourage you to go online to the Vermont Land Trust rec map to find kind of similar recreation opportunities across the state.
Cool. Thank you for that question, Gail. That was a great question. I just saw another question that you just kind of touched on. Judy wants to know, is there a place to download maps? That's a great question.
That's something we're working on, Judy. There is that rec map tool that we mentioned. It's sort of an interactive map, and there's information on our website about these various properties. But I think kind of to address Catherine's question, are there future plans? That's a future task that we'd like to tackle is put some more maps online that could be easily searched and downloaded. Yeah,
so stay tuned. I'm sure when we come up with more map features, we will talk all about it in our VLT newsletter that you should sign up for. And you can do that by visiting vlt.org. Thank you for those questions. So a question from Andy. Does the entire trail system close on November 1st, as the sign says, or is snowshoeing allowed?
The entire trail system does not close November 1st, but the Alden Bryan Brewster River Trail technically does close November 1st. That's the trail that parallels the Brewster River and that ties into some of the trails that Laird was highlighting. So technically that is closed. There's a deer yard at the beginning of that trail, and that's sort of the way that that's been managed over the years. But the other trails as of now are open through the winter.
Great question. Thank you. We will take one more question and then we'll move on. So the last question for right now is, are there walking trails on the upper forested parcel shown on the map at the beginning of the talk?
No, there are not. That's a much more remote parcel. It's very difficult to access. It's by all means, it's open to the public. I mean, there is open public access there. The property is not posted for hunting either. But there's nothing similar to the trails that exist at the primary property.
Well, thank you, Ben. All right, if you have a question that has yet to be answered, don't worry, we will get to it before we are finished, but we're going to go ahead and move on with the rest of the slides.
All right, so we're going to move out into the wide open now and check out the West Farm. This is the second stop on our tour. So the West Farm is a farm of the Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust entity. So the farm manager there is an employee of the trust, as are some of the part-time and other full-time employees. And the farm is it's part of the Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust, so it's an LLC technically, but it is managed as a quote-unquote nonprofit farm. The Vermont Land Trust being the manager, kind of owner of the farm. With our nonprofit mission, we manage the farm without financial profit or gain as our sole motive. So it's primarily a produce farm that spans, well, it's a growing number of acres, but currently it's spanning probably about 10 to 15 acres at any given time, depending on the crop rotation. Right up on West Farm Road is what you're seeing here in the drone photo. So continuing on the theme of what it means to be a nonprofit farm, we have another interactive activity for all of you. What does it mean to you when you hear the term nonprofit farm? How would you define that?
So we'll give a little bit of time to vote. Everyone cast your vote on what you think the answer is.
Catherine, are you seeing the poll box from my screen?
No, I'm seeing it from mine.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it one more second. All right, now I'm gonna share the results so we can all see. There you go. Choice 2 got the most votes. Ben, elaborate for us.
Well, there aren't many right answers on this poll. This is really just to get the thought process going. I think that you all hit it. That's the number 2 is probably the most right answer as it pertains to this farm, at least. A farm that's covering its financial costs. It's not its sole motive is not for profit. It's not obviously to gain financially, but it does need to cover its financial cost. Obviously, it can't produce at a loss, although although sometimes the farm does make decisions to produce at a loss when it's worth it. On the other hand, those losses eventually need to be balanced out, and there's so the farm does sometimes sell at market wholesale prices. At least Brewster Uplands, the West Farm does. So the third option could be good, and then the fourth option is probably not the best choice. It's kind of much more rare. Does the farm take opportunities to sell purely to gain financially? Thanks everyone for taking part in the poll, for voting. All right. So I wanted to introduce Angus Baldwin. He's the manager of the West Farm at Brewster Uplands. And he manages a crew, and he also works in conjunction with his partner, Holly Simpson. They do a spectacular job at the farm. They're really some of the hardest working people I know, and they're constantly trying to find ways to extend the produce that they produce to markets that are kind of unconventional, and supply markets that are not ordinarily supplied by conventional supply chains. So this past year is kind of the most recent example of that. The farm has served as a hub for COVID food relief programs. Angus has not only served as an advisor to the FFF program, that's the USDA/National Guard program that has been distributing boxes of food for COVID relief across the state. That's the Farmers to Families Food Box program. So Angus not only has served as an advisor to that program, but the West Farm has also served as a packing hub for the program. So at last we checked, there's been over 55,000 pounds of food that's been packed at the farm and moved out to these various COVID relief food distribution sites. Just an example, a headline in the local Lamoille newspaper, where a lot of the food that was distributed, dropped off at these distribution sites, was moved through the West Farm. So the farm not only packs produce and food from other farms, but it also produces food and ships that out to various food shelves itself. And this is an example of a delivery being made through the partnership and collaboration with the Healthy Roots organization to distribute to food shelves that are not ordinarily served by the Vermont Food Bank. So Angus is loading up a pallet of donated food boxes to the organization to be delivered up in the St. Albans area in this case. As I mentioned before, the farm serves markets that are not ordinarily served by ordinary supply chains. In other words, the average farmer who can't, the pricing is not good when you sell food to a hospital or to a local elementary school, for example. So most farmers can't really afford to supply those markets. But it's really important that we get healthy local food into those kinds of institutions. So the West Farm is helping to fill that niche. So I had the chance to accompany Angus on a delivery route, and this is just right after delivering to Copley Hospital in Morrisville. Last quick bit about the West Farm. It's in another exciting new development. Currently, we are renovating the old dairy barn at the West Farms. This is the downstairs of the barn, the old milking parlor, where we're turning the facility into another packing hub. So this would be expanded space to serve the kinds of COVID relief programs that the farm participated in this year. Not only that, but to expand food storage space. So that's another bottleneck in the local food system in Lamoille County, where there might be markets for local food at some of the institutions, but there's so much volume of food that needs to be moved and packed that the bottleneck is actually storing it, and again having a place to pack it. So this is the kind of the before shot of renovating this facility to serve as a greatly expanded and capable packing hub and facility. It's all going to be temperature controlled. This is the after shot here, or the poured concrete floor, and then the produce is already starting to be moved in. In fact, it's already being packed. You visit there today, and there's just kind of some of the rooms are wall to wall with food that's going in and out. So with that, we can pause for another round of questions about the West Farm, if anyone has them.
Okie doke. Let's see. So a question saved from last time. Betsy asks, how do you determine if the property is a good investment as a community-based investment? That's a good question.
That is a really good question. I would say that depends on the community. It's the process that the Vermont Land Trust has used in the past to determine whether or not properties are a good investment, whether financially or socially or environmentally, is really listening to the community. So Pine Island Community Farm, for example, in Colchester, the communities of resettled refugee farmers expressed the need to have a place where they could produce culturally important and healthy foods. And the Land Trust determined that was a good investment based on the expressed needs of the community. So we're always looking for feedback. And if there's a new property that comes on the market, if there's a real need in a particular kind of community, whether it be resettled refugees or a need to supply local markets or institutions in the case of the West Farm, we're always hoping to respond to that kind of need based on what the community articulates.
Great, thank you. That leads into a question from Gail that has a bunch of different parts. So Gail asks, does VLT currently have its eye on purchasing any failing Vermont farms or properties that are scheduled or at risk of being developed, I think is what you're asking. And like to use those places to do more of what West Farm is doing.
Currently, no. It's a big undertaking to actually own the farm. That's distinct from conserving it. So another mechanism that the Land Trust has used in the past, as many of you know, it's really conserving those kinds of farms that you describe. So if there is a farm that is important and that has a rich history and legacy of farming, that's got significant economic and environmental value at the same time, then the Land Trust will do everything it can in most cases to partner with state and federal entities to conserve that kind of property, in which case they would hold the development rights, so it would not be developed. It's sort of the same thing that's happening at the West Farm and Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust, which is a unique case actually because it happens to be conserved as well as owned by the Land Trust. But there are many other properties that are just conserved, and it kind of serves a similar purpose.
Cool, thank you. That was a great question. Sterl asks, who does the farm sell to? West Farm. And don't you want a little profit to have a cushion?
Yeah, as we indicated in the poll, there, it's not really that black and white. There are cases where produce is sold at wholesale market prices, and some gains there might outweigh some produce that was supplied at a financial loss. So there's no farm there's very capital intensive operations, and it's very difficult for a farm to operate without revenue. But financial gain again is not the sole motive on the West Farm.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you all for your questions for that section. Keep thinking of more, and we're going to move on to our last stop.
All right, I'll just briefly introduce the Rob Toy Farm and Sam Rowley. It's been a pleasure to work with Sam, another one of the hardest working guys I know. He's initiated, him and the Green Mountain Technical Career Center have initiated a really impressive program at the Rob Toy Farm, which you'll hear from Sam about. And it's a unique model that a lot of folks across the state are taking interest in terms of having hands-on skills-based agricultural education that's based on the farm actually. And there's, as Sam might describe, it's actually closing some loops because it's producing from the farm and sending healthy local food back to the schools and sending students to the farm and vice versa. So with that, I will hand things over to Sam. This is Sam Rowley, everyone. Sam, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah, so as Ben has mentioned, I work for Green Mountain Technology and Career Center. We have our main campus in Hyde Park, and like all the Vermont tech centers, we serve our all of the high schools in our region. So there's, I can't remember how many, I want to say there's like 12 or 13 tech centers through the state. And so I serve the local kind of a number of different school districts. I've had students as far away as just past Hardwick. I've had students from Montgomery, which is almost up at the Canadian border. So you know, students in the region have the right to go to a tech center. And when I say tech center, this is kind of like what we used to call vocational centers. So, you know, I'm just one of the programs at the center, and I teach agriculture, you know, along with all those other ones like automotive and culinary and nursing and all those things. And this center, Green Mountain Tech, is a really great, we're a really great center. We have a great collection of programs, and our students are really moving on into the community, doing a lot of great things. So just a tiny bit about me. I'm closing in on my 10th year as a high school teacher in technical education. I did my first 5 years down at a tech center in Brattleboro, and was officially the horticulture teacher down there, and then learned about this potential happening up in northern Vermont and seized the opportunity. And so I moved here in just the end of June of 2016 and came to a farm site that hadn't really seen much activity for a long time. I'll say part of the farm site, because actually I was pretty lucky to basically inherit a lot of the vegetable part of the Rob Toy farm from Angus Baldwin, who then, you know, moved on to the West Farm as just previously described. But so I started off, and you know, it's just every year we're doing more things and having more improvements happen. So really my purpose as a tech teacher is to provide, you know, some hands-on learning, some skills, some real life skills, some experience of doing one of these trades. The other main charge that we serve as tech ed teachers is basic employability skills. And, you know, the students we get need to be able to fit into the working world and have those basic skills that, you know, just that any successful employee or, you know, maybe business owner needs to have. And so, you know, those are those basic skills about coming to work, showing up on time, all those things. And then while they're doing these tech programs, they also complete high school, of course. So within my program, they're not called embedded credits anymore, because we've, you know, it seems to change every 5 to 10 years, but they have, we can call them that for now. But my students get, you know, they get some science, they get some math, they get. I mean, we do quite a bit of science, obviously. We do quite a bit of math. We have, you know, all the regular things that they need to graduate high school successfully. So, and so here at the Rob Toy Farm, I provide a diversified farm experience, and we keep a number of animal enterprises, and we also work in the vegetable fields. And there's also a little bit of, there's a component that I'm kind of like to connect to maybe some agritourism, but it's also more like just kind of dealing with the public, working with the public. And so some of the things that we do is
Hey, Sam, sorry, can I interrupt you really quick?
Go for it.
Sorry, Ben, there's a rectangle on the right side of your screen that's kind of blanking out part of the slide. You could just close that. Sorry, thanks. We just wanted to see all the cool things that you guys are doing. Okay, sorry. You're back on.
So that picture that just kind of came into view is some of the things that the students get to learn about. We, as tech teachers, like to provide all of the students with what are called IRCs, which stand for Industry Recognized Credentials. So the students in that picture are attaining the Game of Logging Chainsaw Safety certification. And what's really cool is we're actually implementing the Brewster Uplands Conservation Trust Forest Management Plan. So we worked with the forester, they come out, they mark some trees. My students get to learn how to fell a tree right where it's supposed to go. And we also get to do some forest management on the property. So that's just one of those connections. But also, you know, the farm, to provide these students with a real life kind of, you know, agriculture experience, they come every day to the farm, every school day, I should say. And then now, because it's COVID, Wednesday is a computer day. So unfortunately, we're missing one of the weekdays, but otherwise they come, and we have to do all the animal chores, you know, and then depending on the season, it's working in the field. You know, I'm really psyched this year. I have a great group of students. We've already got all of our carrots harvested. We've got most of our other produce harvested. Just while I'm talking about produce, some of the things that I focus on growing are a lot of the storage crops, because just the way that the school year goes, students aren't really present for most of the growing season. So the students can come, they can help plant everything, and then when they return back in the fall, they can help harvest everything. But in the middle there, that's usually what people refer to as the teacher's summer. That's when I'm actually doing a lot of work here on this property, but it's really nice to be here. So vegetable growing is a huge component. Another large component is the animal side of things. We keep a beef herd, and it's a cow-calf system. And I bought the 5 cows of the herd. They've now grown to 12. And I'm really obsessed with and am continuing to experiment with a rotational grazing system. So it's a beef herd, but they get rotated on 24-hour paddocks. So the field doesn't get overgrazed. The field is extremely, the benefits are crazy. I won't talk for hours just about that one topic, but I would suggest looking into it if you're interested in rotational grazing. I was turned on to it from a grazing conference years ago, and finally have been able to practice it for the past 4 years. So it's been really cool to watch the pasture go from a beat down kind of hay field that really never had much put back. Now it's a incredibly lush, just full of life and diversity pasture that the cows just are thriving on. So that's one aspect of the animal side. We also have chickens that we get eggs from. So we have a laying flock. And then there's some goats that you've seen periodically through these pictures. The goats kind of go along with another aspect of the farm, which last year I really focused on pretty strongly, which was bringing in school groups. And so last year through the Lamoille Farm to School program, I was able to schedule, I think it was 10 or 12 school visits through the week of the end of September and into October. And so that meant we had about 2 school groups per week. And, you know, that was a full bus back then. That was pre-COVID time. So they could put people next to each other. Anyway, I focused mainly on 1st and 3rd grade. And I had, you know, basically the 1st and 3rd grade from all of the regional elementary schools came. And so the goats are a main part of that. My students would take groups of these younger kids around through stations, and the stations would involve most of the things I described. So the goats, the chickens, some of these kids would look at me and they'd say, I've never been this close to a cow before. And I'd tell them that they're gonna get to touch that cow. And so they'd get to go in and touch a cow. I mean, they'd also obviously get to chase the goats around, which are very friendly. And then we'd also work in a component like digging potatoes or pulling carrots up. The younger kids' school visits also sometimes extend into the summer. And so I'd work with some of this would be more of an elementary school age summer programs. And they would just be looking for different places to go and things to do. And I'll have, you know, a summer school group out maybe once a week from different schools. And they'd come and spend a couple hours just kind of walking around the farm. And it's really cool because, you know, they come the first time, they're a little timid, and they just keep coming back, and they just really kind of gain some ownership. And one story I want to share is that I think this was the summer before last. These kids would come, and, you know, you just ask them, like, what do you think about vegetables? What do you know about them? And one of these kids was just, you know, didn't know anything about vegetables, wasn't that interested in them. But one of the times that this student came, he tried some pickled radishes that came right from the ground that he was, you know, walking on. And ever since that time, he kept asking for them. He wanted them every time. And so I just feel like some of that's really like one small instance of where, you know, these younger kids can kind of get a connection to some of the more healthy food that's available and that they should really be partaking in. Moving on, the students that I get, the tech centers, we serve mainly the upperclassmen, so that's juniors and seniors in high school. And so sometimes I'm able to get a student for 2 years. They come in as a junior, and they're continue to they for their senior year they want to continue at the farm. And the guy in the middle of this picture is Calvin Smith. He's a student I had for 2 years, and during his second year, I offered him a co-op position. I said he could work at a job that's agriculture related for his class time. And this is something that we do in the tech center, and so students can pursue, you know, a job in their trade instead of coming to class. And so I worked it out where Calvin was working for Angus right up the road. And that was kind of the beginning of this really great kind of, Angus and I kind of saw the circle close, you know, where, you know, one side of the Bucked property, we have this farm that's, you know, producing high quality organic vegetables for the community. And then on the other side of the farm, we have a kind of a training program. So the two worked together, and Calvin was able to put in, he worked for the fall, and then he came back to my class, and then he worked for the spring. That was when the pandemic really hit. So he was able to go and work for Angus. And then all summer long, I've been able to check in with him and see him and talk with him, because he's continued his work through this summer. I'll also mention Calvin was a recipient of the Vermont Land Trust Land Stewards Award. So that's kind of a cool thing. So what happens to the, well, all right, this is a good picture. This is one of my students from before. We are obviously try and have our students be involved with student organizations such as FFA. And here's a picture of one of my students from last year winning an award at the Vermont Farm Show. That was just a month before everything shut down, I think. And so, you know, we get out and about and try and get these kids competing in state events and those kinds of things. So, so another question would be, what happens to the produce that I sell, that I grow, you know, and the eggs and whatnot. And, you know, those things, the students get the experience of, you know, pulling out all these onions, curing them, cleaning them, putting them into bags, weighing them. They also get the experience of selling them. And primarily our markets are basically the school, you know, school staff, and then also other programs. So the culinary class is one of our major buyers. They'll buy our onions, they'll buy whatever we can offer to them. The school cafeteria also will buy our produce. You know, our produce it's not as good as Angus's, I gotta say. I'm gonna be honest, you know. I mean, we've got a bunch of high school students who don't really know, you know, everything about farming, and that's the whole point. And so sometimes our onions are good. Let me tell you, our garlic is even better, but you know, it's not always as you know, refined as the real farms. So this picture I just want to touch on quickly, because on the left there's some students in the culinary program, and on the right there's our community center space at the main campus in Hyde Park. And this is what we're celebrating, a harvest dinner that the Farm to School group tries to put on every year. This year we're missing it, but that's okay. And it's a fundraiser, but also just a gathering to raise awareness of what the Lamoille Farm to School program is doing. And so we had a great visit there last year for that. I don't know what's coming up next, Ben. I know it's going a little over time, right? But just trying to look at
This is the last. I think this is just the last couple photos, just random shots, Sam, before we close.
Okay, so, you know, I mean, I've got to say, the Brewster Upland Conservation Trust property has really, you know, I mean, it's basically all I do. I mean, it sounds pretty lame, but I'll be honest with you. I mean, you know, once I moved up here, it's just, you know, there's a lot of work to keep a experiential farm running. And to keep it running the way that I want it to be done. And you know, my whole goal is to provide a really great experience for these students so that they can hopefully get into agriculture and keep this land in use. That's one of the things that I'm really trying to push for. I don't want to see all this great open land get you know, turned into houses. I really feel like Vermont has a great capacity to feed our population and our neighbors. And you know, the only way to do that is to spark some interest in the people who live here. So the young people, hopefully, And hopefully those young people will move on to kind of embrace what hard work means and feel the benefits of doing that hard work. So with that, I guess I'll pass it on and we'll do questions or something.
Yeah, so send in your final few questions. We have one already. Nancy wants to know, what do you do with the students in the winter?
I put them outside. We go outside. They need to know that it's cold out, and they need to know that hats and jackets are important. And you think I might be kidding, but I'm not. You know, it's working on a farm, especially with animals. You just have to go get it done. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of you on the participants list out there that have some animal enterprises, and I'm sure you know that the animal needs they're just unforgiving. You have to go and smash out that water bucket, and you got to fill it with water that's in a liquid state instead of frozen one. So we go outside. The cows are on they're continued to be rotated until the snow gets too deep, and then they're fed round bales out in the field. And so so basically all the waste, the cow manure and the wasted hay is reabsorbed by the pasture. The cows are pretty rugged. They have some shelter, but they live outside in the winter, and the students need to be out there and check on them.
Cool. Thanks for that question.
Also, let me just say, because I need to do this, we also do a lot of our academics in the winter. So, you know, we'll go out and freeze our butts off, but then we'll come back inside, and that's kind of when we really hammer down on some of the biology topics, the plant science, animal science topics. So just to make sure that people are aware, we're not just out here kind of chasing cows around. We're actually doing quite a bit of academic work as well.
Yeah, they're all important in the learning experience, I'm sure. So Liz says, speaking of academics, how much of that is covered in the field?
Well, I mean, honestly, a lot. If we're taking soil samples, you know, we're making a lot of observations, just really observing. We're calculating area, calculating distance. You know, there's a lot of great education connections that you can make with being outside. You know, there's just, you know, doing kind of diversity checks in the pasture, you know, talking about that can spark a lot of different conversations. But also, like I said, you know, I mean, some of the simpler stuff like measurements and sampling and those kinds of things. I mean, being outside, I think it really does make things click in a different way than students kind of being, you know, stuck at a chair, just kind of doing this kind of rogue, you know, academic kind of learning. I mean, my students have to do, you know, they obviously, they're not just hanging out on the farm, you know. I mean, they need to hand in their work and do my assignments and get feedback on those things and get assessed. And so, but I think it really makes a lot more sense to them when if you cover some topics and then you go outside and actually apply those things, or you learn about, you know, how cow digests things, and then you go out and you actually get to see how the cow's eating. You get to see some rumen contractions. You get to see, you know, poop come out. I mean, it sounds silly, but I think it's really the thing that kind of connects a lot of what comes out of a book and connects it to, you know, how you actually understand what's going on.
Cool. Thanks so much for that question, Liz. And then Liz also adds amazing work to Sam, Laird, and Ben. Thank you so much. So that's all the questions for now. Yeah, that was a really cool presentation to learn about. Thanks everyone for submitting your questions. Thank you to Ben, Sam, and Laird once again. And this is just an announcement to those of you who have stuck with us the whole time. We appreciate it. You'll get an email in the next couple days with a survey about how the presentation was, what you thought of it. So we appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. It helps us make better events in the future. And then we have a couple upcoming events if you are interested in checking those out. One about non-chemical invasive species management options. That's in late October next week. Oh my gosh. And then ecology, conservation, and forest management at the Andrews Community Forest is on November 10th. And both of those are at the same time period. So yeah, you can visit vlt.org to register for those. And you can also visit vlt.org/donate to become a member and support our work if you are not already. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming and being involved. Thanks to Ben and Laird and Sam. That was awesome. I feel like I learned so much. So yeah, thank you to all who participated too. We had a great time telling you more about Bucked. If there's any last words from Ben, Laird, Sam.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm gonna step off. I still have to close the chickens.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I think I'm gonna end this puppy, Ben.
All right, we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.